Welcome to the Collective Genius Podcast, the show for real estate investors who are looking to scale.
Welcome back into the Collective Genius Podcast, the podcast for real estate investors that want to grow and scale their businesses. I have a treat for you today. Unfortunately, he's not passing out cigars, but he has a cigar. This is maybe the best setup of any guest I've had so far, and it's exactly what I expected from my good friend Mika Self. Please welcome in longtime CG member, Mr. Mika Self from Houston, Texas. Welcome in, my friend. Good to have you.
Thank you, Leon. Just we got to make sure my wife doesn't see this, so we're good.
Well, you're not smoking it. You're just.
That's true. It's a thing to hold, right?
Yes, it's a prop. It's
a prop. There we go. It's a prop.
Yeah. Prop. That's what it is.
Yeah.
This would be better if I were sitting next to you and we had cigars in our hand. But since we don't have that, what I would promise
you keep ducking me every time we go to CG. You keep ducking me on the cigar thing.
You know why I do that? I don't do it on purpose. But generally, you are smoking cigars after 9:30 p.m.
No, we start about 8. It just lasts past 9:30.
Well, the last time that I saw a bunch of members smoking together, which was awesome, by the way, looks like you guys were having some great conversations in Clearwater Beach. I saw those pictures and I thought, all right, let me see the timestamp on it. It was like 11 p.m. or something like that.
It may have been Central Time or something, but
I'm up at 5 a.m. for our basketball in the morning, so it's tough for me to make those. And I promise you, I won't duck you one of these meetings.
And I'm gonna hold you to it.
All right, I know you will. All right, so as you can see, if you're listening or watching this pod, Mike and I have known each other for a long time, and these are the type of conversations we go right into when we see each other. Let's start by doing this, Micah. Obviously, everyone knows you in the community. Let's introduce you to those that may not be in the Collective Genius, and for some that may be in different tiers that have never met you before. Where are you? What market are you in? And what is it that you specifically do in the real estate investing world?
We're Mika Self. We're in the Houston market. We're this little small community just south of Dallas, and I've been in the business for quite a while, since 1998. Gone through several iterations over the year, but we've kind of narrowed it down to right now, specifically, mostly wholesale. We're doing a few renovations. We do have buy and hold, and actually in the commercial building, which we're sitting in right now.
So 1998, you have seen obviously some things change in the real estate investing world, but prior to that, you were in the car business. Is that correct?
I started selling cars when I was 19.
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I was actually selling RVs before that, just for the summer. This was back in 1980 when interest rates were, almost 20% for RVs, and nobody was buying RVs, but it was the only job I could get, and started selling RVs. And I had a sales guy that turned out to be, he was an ex-con, and he kept saying, well, you need to go sell cars. You need to go sell cars. That's where the money is. He couldn't get a job selling cars because of his record, but I was 19 and walked in and, started selling cars then, and stayed in the car business for on and off for about 15 years.
So 15 years in the car business. You grew up in Alabama, correct?
I did. Yeah.
Where was the RV? Was this when you were in Texas, or is this Alabama?
No, I lived in Alabama all the way up until 1984, and I was started selling in Birmingham, selling RVs, and then as well as selling cars there. Left Birmingham, moved I was actually in the finance department in the car business, and then took a job in Atlanta. Was at several different dealerships, over the period of time. Moved over to the, I guess what they call wholesale side, or the the dealer rep side. The Toyota business, there was um, districts which of the distributorships in parts of the country, and I went to work for the distributor for the Southeast. After there for a few years, got back into retail in the finance department, sales manager for a while, and then moved back to the wholesale side as a in the I worked for Gulf States, which is they moved me to Houston, and that was in 1992. Yeah,
Okay.
1992.
So 92, you get to Houston. You had never lived there before, right?
Never lived here before. Visited one time, and man, when I got here, I was like, wow, it sure is hot. And then when's it going to be over? Man, 9 months later, man, when's it going to be over? It's still hot. Yeah. And so I was in the car business, working for Gulf States Toyota, the distributor, for a few years. And then, man, I was having a really tough time. I had a significant change in my life. God was really working on my heart for a long time, and just really had a crisis of belief where, am I doing things the right way? No. Living a life that I want to live? No. A lot of pain, a lot of struggle. Had financial success, empty. And finally, and it was in 1994, I just surrendered my life to Christ and ended up leaving Gulf States. Went to work for a company. We refinanced auto loans, doing direct mail to every new car registration, and we would offer to refinance the loan they just received as when they purchased the car. Did that for a few years. Low margin business, really hard to make it work. The company ended up going out of business, and that was in 1998. And my wife, meantime, I'd found my wife. We got married in 1996. In 1998, we were looking for a house for us, and I was kind of pretty handy. I grew up, small town, Alabama, farm boy. If anything broke, you didn't go buy a new one like we do today. We didn't just pick up and dial Amazon, or key in Amazon and replace it. We, duct tape, baling wire, whatever it took to fix it. So I was kind of handy. Was more by my necessity growing up. And then so I would do things around the house. I was actually remodeling a house that we were living in when we got married. I was living in when we got married. And then after married a couple of years, my company was going under. We were looking for a house for us. It was a little bit bigger, and found one near where we lived. My wife said, I don't like it, but why don't you buy it as a project? And honestly, I did not know that this was a business. I did not know that you could buy a house, fix it up, and sell it and make a profit. I just, it was not, I was in the car business for a long time. That was the only thing I knew. So I did it and not even knowing there was a possible business model. I just did it to see if I could make a little money on the house, and paid too much. My budget was half of what it should be. So I spent twice as much. By God's grace, I sold it for a little more than what I thought I would. But from 1 year from the time I bought it till I sold it, it got out of the house after I opened up my shoe box with all my receipts, counted them all up. I made $100.
You made money.
Yeah, well, that's not counting any of the Home Depot receipts that flew out of the window as I'm, driving back to the project. It didn't count any of my labor. I was swinging a hammer, hiring day laborers. I was one of the, doing all the trash out, all that. I would haul stuff to the dump. So yeah, I got paid nothing. I got paid $100 for my labor for the year.
Well, you were negative on the deal when you put everything in perspective there, but something clicked because clearly you found out this could be a business and you turned it into such. Where in that journey of hauling things out and muddy and dirty and all
Well,
the work and sweat
I
you
did.
put into
I,
this.
I did things along the way. I am. I'm supposed to be the one that's providing for my family, and I'm supposed to be the one that my wife should be depending on me, not depending on her. And so I actually tried a couple different things. There's days that I would get up and I wouldn't want to go to that project because I knew within a couple of months in, I messed up.
Mm.
And so this was when, this was 98, 99, 98. All the tech stocks were booming. I go to the gym, the guy handed out towels that the gym was giving stock tips. So it was easy to go, let me try day trading. So I did that for a little while and didn't turn out well. Matter of fact, I was on vacation and I got a margin call and I had to go confess to, I'm sneaking off to take the call, end up losing money. I had to go confess to my wife what I had done. Um, you know, she's the most gracious woman ever. She forgave me, never brought it up again. But during that time, funny story, a girl that I had dated several years before, I had met one of her ex-boyfriends, and he and we weren't friends, we were kind of acquaintances. And it turns out he was in the real estate. He was doing this in Austin, Texas. And after I was in the middle of that first project, he called me and he said, "Hey, I've got a house that a realtor called me on. It's in Houston. I can't work on it. Here's the guy's number." So I went and looked at it. From the first mistake I made to this one, and this was only within a few months, I looked at this house and I knew it was a deal. So I ended up buying that house and ended up putting one of my friends in it as a tenant. It had no air condition. I bought him a $100 window unit from Sears at the time, put the window in the bedroom, and I said, "I'll give you the window unit, but I'm not putting air conditioning in the other part of the house, and I'll charge you almost next to nothing in rent." So he lived in that house while I finished and sold the first one. And then he moved out while I went and worked on the second one. We ended up moving in that house, knowing we had a lot of equity going in. And that was where the bug really, or the fire took hold of saying this, I can do this.
Mhm.
And from that point, I ended up finding out about the foreclosure auction. So I started going to the courthouse steps, buying a lot less expensive properties. And from there, I did that for several years.
You weren't working when you're doing these homes, these first two. Were you still in a W-2?
No, about the time that we bought that first one was when the job ended. As a matter of fact, I was a manager working for the company, and the owner came to him and he said, "I can't cover payroll. Do you mind if I don't pay you?"
Do you mind?
Yeah. He told me, he basically saying, your check's not going to clear. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
So I ended up working the last month for free on top of that.
Wow. Did you say, "Yes, I do mind, but it doesn't sound like it matters"?
I couldn't even speak really, but I felt bad for everybody else because I was okay. I mean, God's grace, my wife and I got married. We had no debt except for the house that I owned. I think she had just a few more car payments left on the car that she owned. And so we were in good shape. I drove a Toyota with 200,000 miles on it. So, money was not a problem. Didn't have a ton of it, but we didn't have debt. So that was, we had that safety net.
It was a good opportunity to start anew, and you did.
It was.
Obviously.
It was.
So
And honestly, if it weren't for my wife, I never would have done it. I'll tell you, this is I never had the entrepreneur bug that really was of any lasting. It made it last into anything else because I would maybe try something here and there, but I would always go back to selling cars or whatever it was. Except I wasn't. This is again. I was not a Christian. I understand when I tell you this story. When I was in middle school, I go to the local grocery store. We had two grocery stores, the Piggly Wiggly and the Gore's Big Star. I go to the Gore's Big Star because they sold Playboy. And I would buy a dirt bike magazine and a Playboy. And I would slide the Playboy underneath the dirt bike magazine and go to the register. So because I was too embarrassed. Well, then the little lady at the register, she would of course charge me for both. And it was $1.06 with tax for the Playboy. And I'd go home, cut the pictures out, and go to school and sell them 25 cents, 10 cents, 50 cents. I could get $1 for the centerfold. So that was my first entrepreneurial experience right there.
You were always selling.
But it didn't last long because I felt bad about it as well. But yeah, so this is not to be aired, for your young children right now. So don't try that at home. But in all fairness, the Playboys back in those days were probably as tame as walking through the mall today with a Victoria's Secret in the window. Staring right at you. So
they were Sports Illustrated swimsuit editions.
Yeah.
That would be the comparison now.
Exactly.
So at some point, for most investors, you make this switch, you start going to courthouse steps, and I'm guessing, just like others that joined Collective Genius right around that 2010, 11, 12, courthouse steps started to dry up. And at some point you have to figure out, all right, if I'm going to scale this, I have to go outside of the courthouse steps. When did you make that transition of going more direct to seller and building a brand?
It was sort of a little transition. I did. I was officing out of my house. I did make my first hires as an assistant / office manager. Finally put QuickBooks in desktop, so I could keep track of receipts outside of a shoebox. And we did the auction for several years and then started slowly transitioning to direct to seller through we have what's called a green sheet. It's the area classified paper that you can pick up at the grocery store or the gas stations. And so I started running just a We Buy Houses ads in the green sheet, and that worked pretty well. And I started expanding that and going to different areas around Houston because Houston's a pretty wide geographical area, and that was working pretty good. And then I was also mailing the foreclosure list, so I was getting some direct response. And there's a big shift. I actually told this story at Premiere the last time I spoke on the main stage. I pull up to a house that was on the list, and I couldn't see the front door because it was so overgrown. The tree, literally the trees were growing down over the sidewalk. So I made my way to the front door, knocked on the door, no one answered, walked around to the side where the living room area with the windows, long windows, looked inside. It looks like it was vacant. Then I walked around the other side with the driveway and went around to the backyard, and the trees were so overgrown in the backyard. There was actually a car sitting there with trees growing up from under the car. So it'd been sitting there for a long time. Mm-hmm. So I knocked on the back door, no answer. I walk around. I'm looking in the back windows, and I'm looking in the kitchen window. And this is about 1:00 in the afternoon. I'm looking in, and there's two eyes looking right back at me. I jump, she jumps, and I compose myself and I point to the back door. So she comes over, and she's, again, 1:00 in the afternoon. She looks older, stringy hair. I mean, she's just very unkempt. She's wearing a bathrobe. And I tell her that I noticed her house is being foreclosed on, and she, I've got it taken care of. Great. Do you mind if I ask how you took care of it? She said, well, there's a guy that's going to buy it. That's awesome. When was he here? Well, he was here about 3 weeks ago. Like, okay, well, you're scheduled to be foreclosed in 2 weeks. If you don't mind, I could come right in and I could make you an offer today. Well, now she started warming up a little bit. She let me in. We're talking, and we walk through the kitchen. She has been cooking on a hot plate because there's no oven, no stove. It doesn't work. The dishes are full. She has no running water. I mean, it is filthy. Mm-hmm. And sweet lady, she's walking me through, and I mean, the bathrooms were, were sadly disgusting. And so we're walking through, and it's a pretty big house, about 3,000 square feet. And we sit down, and I said, Geraldine, I could probably get you around 40 or 50,000. She looks at me, her eyes got really big, and she said, absolutely. Well, wow. Okay. Maybe I offered too much. I mean, what am I missing? What's really wrong with this house that I'm not seeing? It kind of scared me a little bit because she was too quick to accept. I said, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna go to my office. I'll run the numbers. I'll come back. Well, I left, and I'm trying to wiggle. What am I doing? This is a deal. So I pull over, write the contract, turn around, go back, and I walk in. Geraldine, congratulations. I've got you $40,000. She grabs the pen out of my hand to sign. We talk for a little bit, and we make a plan. I said, Geraldine, do you mind if I pray for you? I'd never done this before. I just felt anyway. So she didn't say a word. She just bowed her head. I don't remember what I said, but all I know is I prayed for her, and I've got my head bowed, and I look down at her feet, and it's just a pool of tears. And wow, it was hard. And it turns out she only owed about $15,000 on the house, but she had no money, no income. So we made a plan. I said, okay, I'm going to go to the title company now, take the contract. I'll bring you back a copy, so forth. I'll pick you up in 1 week, and I will take you to the title company for closing. And then I'll give you another week or 2 weeks to move out. And give her 2 weeks. And so worked it out. So 1 week later, I pull up, and a lot can happen in a week, right? So I pull up. Well, before I can even get out of my truck and get around to the other side, here she comes out the front door. She's got her Sunday best on, little high heels. She's click, 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 coming down the sidewalk. She's as fast as she can. I open the door, put her in, and I get in. The smell of perfume is so overwhelming. I'm like a dog with a head out the window driving. She had bathed in perfume because she had no water to bathe.
Sure.
We get to closing. She gets her check. I take her home. I said, I'll see you in 1 week. I'm going to come check on you in 1 week. So a week later, I pull up. There's a car sitting in the driveway. I go to the front door. I knock on the door, and this other woman comes to the door. I thought it was another woman. It was her. She looked 10 years younger. She had bathed. She was smiling. Her whole countenance had changed. And she was so excited. She stepped out. She said, did you see my new car? And it was probably 5-8-year-old used car sitting in the driveway. She said, I have an apartment. I have a washer and dryer. Her life was changed. I wish I could say that it was like a dramatic change for me at that moment, but that was when the moment shifted a little bit to help me realize that what I do truly has a value in the marketplace. I have the potential to change someone's life. And then I got to, as we did more direct to seller, I got to see that over and over and over again. And then eventually transitioned out of the transactional business of the courthouse steps. There's no life transformation there. All we're doing is we're buying and selling bricks and sticks. Mm-hmm. But I got to, and so it still hadn't really sunk in all the way. But I bought had a bunch of rental houses and so forth, and then in probably 2006, I was selling a house that we'd renovated. And the credit was so bad, trying to get someone approved for it, we actually I got someone approved with a 520, 530 credit score, no money down, rolled in the closing cost. There you go. And I was friends with a loan officer that did the loan, and I was like, this is crazy. So I started selling all my rental properties, or at least most of them. I'd sold a bunch on rent to own. I started contacting the tenant buyers and okay, now's the time. Let's go get you a loan. Let's go get you a loan. If we either did that or they moved out, and I went from about 30 plus rental properties down to about a dozen. And I was really trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to be doing now? About that time, remember Katrina had hit New Orleans. I had a friend of mine reach out to me, made an introduction that with a couple of guys that was working with FEMA to place trailers for temporary housing for all the evacuees from all the way from Baton Rouge all the way to Slidell, Louisiana. And we were working on trying to get property to work with FEMA. And FEMA was full blown, they were giving away money and developing these properties. And we're trying to find properties. By the time, for about 6 months, we were working on that. I had pretty much, shut down my direct to seller marketing. I wasn't doing anything except selling my rentals. And I was going over to Louisiana about every week looking for property. And after about 6 months, it went for FEMA was going to develop and place 1,000 trailers on a piece of property that we had originally got under contract, but we couldn't get approved by the parish. We got to Slidell, and the parish said, yeah, we'll approve it, but I need a letter from FEMA. FEMA said, I can't give a letter, but we could probably put about 20 or 30 trailers. I'm like, okay, it was 1,000 just a few months ago. And they started pulling out. And by God's grace, we were able to pull out. And that was when I said, okay, what am I going to do now? And this was in 2007 when the first subprime lenders started going under. And I just said, okay, I know what I'm okay. I do a pretty good job at this buying and selling these small houses. Let's get back into that. So I went full bore back into it. And that was the first time I actually hired more than one employee. And we ramped up the marketing during when everybody else was getting out, we were getting back in full bore.
During this time, obviously you made that decision to go full-time, full bore, as you mentioned. Early, you have one of the best cultures, defined cultures in this community. Did you know what you wanted to build the business, how you wanted to build the culture of your business 2007, 2008? Did you know way back then, or is this something over the last 10 years?
No, it was more about, I just wanted to do business the right way. I just want, it was about, I don't, I don't, we go, I don't lie, cheat, or chew and mess around with girls that do, It was, I'm not going to, cheat anybody. I'm not going to steal. I just want to do things the right way. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't making it, oh, this is what the company does. And then, I started really studying business and leadership, and there's an excellent book, a little small book called The Business Card. And it talks about the core values, and especially from a Christian perspective. And it was at that point I started making coming up with core values, but it was more about me and what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be, and how we wanted to hire and so forth. Not about what it was going to really look like. I didn't really understand that that the company could look like that. And matter of fact, the first list of core values I probably had 10 or 20. It was just on a wall, huge. And then as we're hiring, I'd hire and I'd show, oh, these are our core values. And I was interviewing a woman one time and she started crying because she said, I've never worked for a company that has that. And while a lot of our core values we broke the rules, they were aspirational. It was not who we were or who I was all the way. But over time, as we would hire more and we realized, okay, this person, we hired them, but they're not a fit. It's because the core values are really aspirational. I wasn't willing to hire or fire over the core values. And so we started winnowing it down. Like one of our core values used to be fun. Okay. Well, some people just aren't fun, but doesn't mean they're not good people. Doesn't mean I might not want to work with them, might not want to hang out with them, but I want them on my team.
Sure.
So I'm not going to fire somebody if they're not fun. So it really went down to, I think we're down to 5, the values that we have. And while we're not perfect, it's who we are, and it's not aspirational. It's who we are deep down.
At some point, you're building this, and it starts from the top up, obviously. So you're trying to define what you want the business to be, and obviously, the people that you hire underneath typically are going to fall suit to those core values, even if it is 20 of them, and you have to eventually get them down to 5, which makes total sense, especially as you understand how you want the business to look as you continue to grow it. Now you're growing this, and at some point you find out about this group called the Collective Genius. What year was that? And
I think I originally was, I can't remember how it actually came across my purview, but originally it was probably in 2015. And it's kind of funny because I've always been kind of a skeptic when it comes to groups. I didn't have a great experience with local real estate investment club. It wasn't a bad experience, but I would go, and here I am, a guy that had done maybe 3 or 4 or 5 houses, and I was one of the experts in the group. That just didn't make sense. And so it was always a kind of a pitch fest. If anybody did have any experience, they were up on the stage selling, and not really knowing if they had the experience or not, if they were just selling a product. So even when the Collective Genius came across, I was totally skeptical. And so I think I may have even inquired, but never followed up. And I was actually talking, I think Scott, he's my operations director in marketing. He was actually looking at other websites. We were going to do some redesign or updating our website, and he was actually searching for other investors and found Brad Chandler, his website, and reached out to his marketing guy, and through that made the introduction to Brad. Brad and I talked, and he introduced me to the Collective Genius, and so that's when I went online and connected again. That was in December 2016 was the first meeting.
Man, Brad has multiple connections today. You're second person I've talked to that had a recent connection or a previous connection that got them to CG through Brad. I'll have to make sure I message him after we're done here. He's a web here for
he is,
this group. Yeah. Most definitely. All right, so you're a skeptic. I've had many a conversation of skeptics in the group that were out of the gates and that came to their first meeting and their second meeting and their third meeting, and 10 years later, you're 9 years in. They are, the pillars of this community. You're now at the highest level, our CEO group. What was it about that first meeting where you were like, oh, this is real?
It actually took probably the third day for me to really allow it to sink in. And I think it was a different format then, but there were things that just really were eye-opening. For example, I had read the book Traction. Is it Traction?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Traction. And it was because my brain just couldn't absorb it. I couldn't absorb it and transfer it, see how that would work in our business. I'm thinking, okay, that works for other businesses, not for this business. I just couldn't, because it wasn't using, our type of business as an example in the book. And that first meeting, there was a EOS implementer that was one of the guest speakers. And all of a sudden I got it a little bit. I thought, okay, we need to do that. And Bruce Norris was also one of the speakers.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of respect already for Bruce. He actually had been to Houston and spoke at the real estate club in Houston and had predicted the downturn. And so, okay, there's some legitimacy now to the collective genius.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that those guards started coming down. It was probably that last day when those two speakers that really solidified, okay, this is a group I want to be a part of. Because
that format was completely different. I remember I was not at that meeting. I hadn't come back to this side yet. I was 6 months away from coming back to CG, but I remember watching those presentations. It was always the third day, Wednesday, that we had keynotes, especially for a December meeting.
Well, actually, and back then it was
December was
there were
always
not hot seats. There weren't hot seats in December. So it was speakers all day, but it was, I think the first couple of days it was usually someone within the group or something.
Yes.
That was
The
speaking.
third day was outside speakers. That's right.
And I believe also maybe the second or third day, Dean Graziosi was also one of the speakers too.
Yeah. Usually, goodness, man, when you were saying that, I thought of how many different iterations we've had in the last 7 years since I've been in this seat. It's completely transformed. But what hasn't changed are those connections. Was there one that during that meeting, obviously the first day and the second day, that form of meeting wasn't a lot of connectivity. You were in a big room together. The entire group was together. Were there any connections, maybe day 2 or day 3 that you made that, made a difference for you?
There was on day 3, actually, I got up, I was having my quiet time in my room that morning, and I decided to go eat breakfast, and I took my Bible with me just in case, I wasn't expecting to sit with anybody, but I was just going to read a little more, and I went down, and I noticed a couple of guys that had name tags, and I just, kind of said hello, and they invited me to join them. And sat down, and one of them said, that's your Bible. Yeah. Next thing you know, we're talking about the Lord. We're talking about, faith. And it was 2 guys, Ron Walraven was one of them, that was the first connection I made of someone that carried on outside the group. I made other connections, but I really didn't have any deep conversations for those previous 2 days. And we ended up, and it was his business partner, Jesse, I think is what his name. And we ended up, sharing an Uber, to the airport later that day. So we're still friends.
What overall, I know what you've meant to this group, and I'll explain that after I get your answer here to the audience. What has the group meant for you? I mean, clearly you've been around, 9 years for a reason. There's something that you get, and obviously a lot that you give. What has the group meant for you?
It's changed over time. Initially it was just that eye-opening, okay, we can do more. Because there's always been these kind of a glass ceiling, actually more like a paper ceiling, it seems like, of getting to each level. I mean, just, getting to 50 deals per year was like, oh man, that's when I hit that, that'll be, that's going to be the utopia. Right.
Right.
And just to get there was so hard. And then we get there, it's like, oh, okay, well, that's while that's rewarding, it also brings a whole lot more, whole new set of issues and challenges along the way when it comes to staffing and systems and processes and so forth. So, that was the initial part, beauty of CG was seeing what's possible because other people are doing it. And while then over time it was going deeper and tightening up those things and getting better and getting more effective and efficient and even growing as a leader, having those type of conversations with other people and how they're have been effective and not effective, learning from other people's mistakes. um, there's always the collaboration between the strategies and the tactics and things like that, what marketing and all that stuff. And then it has, really moved into, now, and it's just twofold I say three for me now. One is, I need to stay sharp because, I know you don't think this, Leon, but I am probably one of the oldest guys in the group, right?
I do not think that at all.
Yeah. And so I need to stay sharp. And I want to learn from these young guys that didn't grow up with blinders like I did. But also want to grow and be challenged by people that are at that CEO level, that are now operating at a level that they're not involved in the business day to day, that they are leading by the numbers and so forth. Mm-hmm. And then the third component of why I love the group is the fact that, because I have some more, I guess, I have road miles, that I've got some experience that a lot of people haven't had to enjoy yet. And I say enjoy, and I actually had this conversation with someone last night. You get to enjoy your consequences. You get to enjoy experience, whether it's positive or negative. If it's positive now, it's fun. If it's negative, you get to enjoy the learning component that you can apply down the road. So, what I can hopefully bring to the group is to talk to other guys about marriage and parenting and things like that. Things that they're not going to CG to get, but that they can get anyway. And because I want to make myself available, me, Scott Myers, we have so much fun talking to these young guys and just see them absorb what we have to say, because they're probably not getting it other places.
It's interesting. When I was asking that question, I said I would follow up with what you bring beyond the business piece of it, because you've presented multiple times on direct mail. You and Scott have done some great presentations, some of the practical, tactical, but your best presentations, and the ones that have always, taken home a belt, have always been more towards the non-business side of leadership, father, of Christian, husband, all the things that you are in title outside of a business owner. And I think this is a really good piece to share with the audience. Often when we ask, especially our select and elevate members, to give us feedback, like we do at every level at the end of a meeting, because we really do care and we use that to make some tweaks every single meeting. The younger generation will say, hey, can we do a little bit less on the leadership? Can we do a little bit less on, the rah-rah, or building relationships and vulnerability exercise? Can we do a little bit less on that? Because I come here to really get, the things that I'm at 50 deals right now. I'm trying to get to 100. I need to know how to do that. That's what I come here for. Can we do a little bit less of the other side? And I said, absolutely, we can. We could change that tomorrow. But I'm not. I don't have as many grays as you, and I give some sage advice, but I don't have as much as you from life experience. But the one thing I do know is that usually when the investors are saying that, we have to give them the medicine that they don't necessarily want. And maybe we don't give them, a quart full of it. We give them a spoonful more than they anticipate, because that's what they usually need more of at that given time. And I think that all of our investors that have been in the group for a long time, you mentioned Scott, it is a true reciprocal relationship where you're giving value beyond just business that is helping mold these young entrepreneurs into, very balanced human beings. Not that we ever get life balance per se, but there is this community isn't this community without having members like yourself in here to lead by example and to help fill some of those gaps that some of us don't even know we need until we have a conversation or a cigar with you. I was coming back from basketball last week from our meeting, and had a member that you made such an impact on him. And I think I mentioned this to you at the Premier and CEO meeting. By just having a conversation with him and offering your last cigar from, here in Florida that you gave to him, that made such an impact on him. Just that little bit of, the conversation. He didn't know you really, I don't think, at the time. But it's that piece of it. People come here for the business piece of it. But man, you're going to walk away as such a more well-rounded human being because of, members like yourself. That's in a long-winded way of saying that's the value that you bring it beyond.
Well, thank you. And it's interesting you say that, sometimes you have to give them what they don't know that they need. And I think that's true, especially when it comes to on the personal side. Because, as men, which the majority of Collective Genius is men, it's just by default in the business world. And it's who I connect with because, men can relate to men. And I really wish that I had someone, I did have people when I was a young married, but I didn't have before I was a Christian, all those years before I didn't have people speaking into my life. I didn't have, people that were willing to tell me, the hard truth. That's one thing that I was actually sharing with someone last night. I'll let you know. My daughter is now engaged as of Sunday night. And Carter, her fiance, boy, it's hard for me to say. He works for me, been working for me for 2 years. And yesterday was my birthday. Sunday was his engagement. So he came over last night and we shared a cigar. And I was just sharing with him, one of the benefits that he has is that he has people in his life that are willing to speak the truth. And I'm willing to say the hard things, first of all, because I'm too old to tiptoe. I don't have time, and I'm willing to say the hard things if somebody's willing to listen, for sure. But I do it because I care, not because, I like seeing people cry. Contrary to popular rumor. But if I can bring a little bit of value to, one or two people, every time we go to the meeting, then, hey, it's a win for me.
Yeah. Well, I do think that there are times where I've talked to members in the past and they say, hey, I don't feel like I'm bringing enough tactical, practical value anymore as a member because I've got so many people, that I'm learning from in this group. And I say, well, what are your strengths? What do you feel like you can bring, and focus on that? And generally it's just experience.
Yeah.
As beyond just the business side, it's the balancing, family and the time, the burnout that sometimes that we've all had at some point, and dealing with the stress that come with. Everyone in there is a hard charging entrepreneur. They all want to grow, and then most of them are in there first for the business, grow the business. But like you said, the target's always moving, and if the target's always moving, it's very hard to remain happy in all aspects of your business unless you have those sage advisors speaking wisdom into you. And that's, that's invaluable within this community. And it's something that it's such a great relationship that I have seen continue to grow at all levels, but especially at the premier and CEO levels, because now we have some of the long-term members that are upstairs, and when they come downstairs, a lot of those younger premier members were like, I got to go talk to Mika, or I got to go talk to Scott, or I got to go talk to Phil, or whomever that's been in the group for a very long time. Last thing before I get you out of here, I always ask people at the end of this what they're most excited about outside of your daughter's engagement. What you're most excited about right now in business or in life?
Well, there's a handful of things. And I will share that most recent, and that is my daughter is, she's getting married. Matter of fact, it's already going to be in 3 months. So we got a fast 3 months to get. She wants to have Christmas with her husband. So we're trying to. It's a lot of stress on my wife. So, but it's going to happen. So by God's grace, that's one thing we're really excited about. Another thing is my wife and I, we have a heart for marriages. So we actually just moved into a new home that we're going to create a space for marriage retreats. We have to put a pool in place. So that's going to take about 6 months, but we're hoping by the spring, we can start doing marriage retreats. The talk I gave over a year ago about marriage, that will be kind of the basis of what we'll be doing. And we'll be hosting 4 couples at a time for a long weekend and really doing a deep dive into how their marriage can grow and thrive. On top of that, in the business, we have really developed a kind of a BHAG or whatever it is, more focused on our giving aspect. And we call it our heart, hands, and feet. What are the things that breaks God's heart? And human trafficking is one of the greatest travesties in our the 20th to 21st century, and it's a huge need. And so that's one of the things that we're really focused on, giving and supporting the fighting of human trafficking. Abortion, saving babies, we love that. Marriages, so forth. What breaks God's heart? And then how can we be the hands that reach out and help those in need? And if that means serving or giving or whatever it might be. And then feet, as a Bible-believing Christian, I believe that everyone should call on Jesus Christ as the Lord and Savior. And we're excited about Bible translation. There's ministers of support called Mission X that is getting the gospel to the young people all over America, Asia, Africa, all over the world. And so we want to be the feet that deliver the good news of Jesus Christ across the globe. So it's heart, hands, and feet. And those are the things that we talk about here in the office. And it's all connected in what we do every day.
So glad I asked, Micah. I didn't know about the marriage retreats, that you're going to be starting up. I watched that presentation. In fact, it was the most impactful presentation of the year. You've got an award probably sitting right behind you that you got for that particular presentation. So if people want information, I mean, that is something that I know, especially from an entrepreneur standpoint, that is something that I get requests for quite often. How will they be able to find your information about that as it comes out? Is there a way for them to follow you or reach out?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. I'm not too much on Instagram yet, but I'm sure that I will be. Reach out to me on Facebook. It'd be probably the best place. And we haven't really developed anything as far as marketing, and it probably won't be real loud initially. We're actually going to have a few couples that we know that will be the test dummies to go through it before we are ready to roll it out and bring other people in. So
I'm sure they will love that you're calling them test dummies. I'm sure they'll love that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's all in love.
Well, Micah, this is a conversation that I want to continue when I can stay up past 9:30 at one of these meetings in the future over cigar. I appreciate your time as always. Thank you for sharing so much wisdom and your story for a lot of people that may not have heard it, even in CG and outside of it as well. I appreciate your time as always, and always a good conversation with you.
I will do anything to have an excuse with my buddy Leon. I always want to make that happen, and don't get to see you often enough. But every time I see you, it's as if we're picking up where we left off. And
no doubt about that. And I love that about our relationship, our friendship, is that even though we only see each other probably 3-4 times a year, we just pick up where we left off. And those are the type of things that I don't have that relationship unless I'm in this community. And that's the things that I don't, in consults, when people apply, we do have those conversations, but that's kind of the byproduct. But it's the best byproduct of a community like this, is being around not only great business owners, but great human beings like yourself.
I did not even take it personal when you took me off the basketball invite list also.
I had to take you off because you would wait until day 3 when everyone else was tired and come in as a sharpshooter. So
Well,
that's
and
why
then I had to
took you
retire.
off.
I had to retire my Converse.
Yes, yeah, he did come out in Chucks one time, I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
Micah, thank you as always, my friend. Great seeing you. And
Same here.
if you are listening to this or watching this on YouTube and you'd like to be in the room with members like Mika Self here, or be future friends with Micah, the best way to be able to do that is to go to our website, explorercg.com. There you'll find our application. You'll find all the different tiers. If you're a full-time real estate investor, if there's a fit here, we will make sure that we find the right room for you, especially if you're a hard-charging entrepreneur that wants to continue to grow your business. And as you've heard from this particular podcast, beyond just business, the Collective Genius community. So that's, again, at explorercg.com. That is it for now. Mike is going to light up his cigar. If you're watching on YouTube, and if you're listening to this, he's got cigar in hand. I'm going to go let him smoke that. We will see you again next week on the Collective Genius Podcast.
New episodes every week. To learn more, visit explorercg.com, where real estate investors come to scale.